welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Hello and welcome to the Skeptic Zone, episode number 273 for the 13th of January 2014. Richard Saunders here with you from Sydney, Australia. Yes, I'm back from a wonderful trip to California. Always have a great time in California, but it's nice to be home. Yeah, okay, it's a bit hot and sticky in Sydney, a bit sweaty, but there you go. Coming up on this week's episode of the Skeptic Zone, I catch up to a good old friend of mine, Dr Simon Singh. What a clever man. My friends, what a clever man. He has written a new book. Oh, hello, it's Fred the cat. Hello, Fred. Yep. He has written a new book called The Simpsons and Their Mathematical Secrets. In fact, Simon Singh gave a talk here in Sydney just the other night about his new book. Fascinating. All the maths hidden in The Simpsons, advanced mathematical problems and equations and all sorts of things. Really interesting stuff. So I catch up with Simon, and he also discusses the recent changes to the libel laws in England. Following that, it's a week in science. Back again from the Royal Institution of Australia with their predictions, their scientific predictions, or their predictions in the world of science for 2014. And following that, Maynard's spooky action with his predictions, or should I say, the people who go to Skeptics in the pub, their predictions for the coming year, 2014. What do skeptics think will happen this year? Now, just a couple of quick notes here. It's been brought to my attention. There's a book out called America's Imaginary Hostage Crisis by Andrew Endersby. This is available on Amazon, and I will put a link in the show notes to this episode at www.skepticzone.tv. Now, in 1979, a group of Iranian students invaded and occupied the US Embassy in Tehran. 6,000 miles away, a newly trained team of military psychics was given the task of remotely viewing the embassy grounds. But how accurate were they? For the first time ever, these declassified reports are looked at in detail and compared to the real events. Oh, that does sound interesting. America's Imaginary Hostage Crisis. Worth a look. Also, I'm delighted to say that Radio Citywide, lpfm.org, Neighbor Radio 99.1 FM, in Madison, Wisconsin, will now be replaying interviews from the Skeptic Zone. Great to know. If you're in that area, tune in, 99.1 FM. Well, I know you're keen to hear Simon Singh, but for now, I'm going to run to the fridge, get myself a nice tall glass of ice-cold water while you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. I'm sitting here in a sort of a back street of Darling Harbour in Sydney. There's some rainbow lorikeets in the tree above us. There are some people walking by. I'm with Dr Simon Singh, who's visiting Australia. Hello, Simon.
Yeah, we should say there's a very picturesque car park right behind us.
Right behind us. There's a voluminous car park with hardly any cars, but I think people can hear the street noises. You've found yourself in a rather nice part of Sydney, I must say, down here in Darling Harbour.
Yeah, well, I'm here with my wife and my child, and we're here partly for a family wedding in Melbourne, so we're going to be heading down to Melbourne in a couple of days in a camper van, so it's a bit of a holiday as well.
Really? Oh, what fun.
And also a chance to talk to some skeptics while I'm here, and I've written a new book, so I'm giving some talks about the book as well, so it's a bit of work, a bit of fun, and a bit of kind of visiting relatives as well.
That's excellent. Well, let's talk about the book, because you very graciously gave a talk here in Sydney just a couple of nights ago, the day you flew in, I might add, for our local Sydney Skeptics in the pub, all about your new book, and the feedback we've been getting from the talk, and the books were flying off the shelves, so to speak, at your talk, which was very gratifying. has been very positive. People loved your talk. What's the book all about, and how can people get it?
Oh, yeah, well, as you said, I'd flown in that day, yes. And so it's normally the audience that falls asleep in my talks, but that day it was almost me that fell asleep. But so the story of this book, so the last book I've written was all about alternative medicine, and that was very much about criticising bad science or bad medicine. This is a book very much in praise of, or in celebration of, something good, something positive, which is the fact that a lot of the writers of The Simpsons and a lot of the writers of Futurama, because they're a very, very similar team of writers, those writers have very strong mathematical backgrounds. And I mean people, with degrees in maths, which is impressive enough. Some have got PhDs in maths. Some have written mathematical research papers. One chap, Jeff Westbrook, was a Yale professor before he became a comedy writer. And all of these writers with a mathematical background have been smuggling mathematical equations and special mathematical numbers into The Simpsons and Futurama over the last few decades, or 25 years in the case of The Simpsons. And people have never noticed them before, or very, very few people have noticed them, because they're smuggled into the name of a book on a bookshelf, or the name of a shop as Homer and Bart walk by. And so the book is about really pulling out all those bits of maths, explaining what the maths is, explaining a bit about it in the context of the show and what the show's all about, and talking about the writers. Who are these people who started off as mathematicians and who are now not just comedy writers, but comedy writers on the most successful TV show in history? Yes,
that's right. And it was fascinating when you had examples, stills from the show, and you'd zoom in on a corner of the whole frame, and there's a number, which had a very special meaning, or a series of numbers. Yeah, I mean,
so for example, there's an episode called Marge and Homer Turn a Couple Play, where a character called Tabitha Vicks, who's married to a baseball player, Buck Mitchell, Tabitha and Buck are having marital problems, and the whole episode is about how their marriage is repaired by Marge and Homer. So that's what the story's about. And at the end of the story, there's a jumbo vision TV screen at the baseball stadium, and there's a question on it which says, "What is a crowd at today's baseball game?" And there are 3 numbers up there. And each of those numbers is mathematically very, very significant.
And they're not dissimilar. They're all within the same range.
Yeah, they're all about 8,000, which is what you might expect for a baseball crowd. So I think one number is 8128. 8128, I think, is a perfect number, which means that the factors of the number, the divisors of that number, add up to the number itself, like 6. 1, 2, and 3 go into 6, and 1 and 2 and 3 add up to 6. Another number is 8208. 8208. And 8208 is special because it's got 4 digits. So we raise each digit to the 4th power. So 8208 becomes 8 to the 4th plus 2 to the 4th plus 0 to the 4th plus 8 to the 4th. Add all of that together and you get back to 8208.
Did you call that a narcissistic?
Yeah, a narcissistic number, because the digits, the number reforms itself from its own digits. It's almost in love with itself. It's a narcissistic number. And again, these numbers are rare. There are less than 100 amongst the infinity of numbers. So those are the kind of things that are going on in the show.
What did you have to do to discover all these little gems?
Well,
did you literally spend hours upon hours watching The Simpsons and Futurama?
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. It's a book I've been researching all my life, or for half of my life anyway. So I spotted this about 10 years ago, and I wanted to write a book about it 10 years ago, and then I got distracted by alternative medicine, and I got sued for libel. That took up a few years, and we've been campaigning for libel reform. That took up some time. But then about 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I got back to the book. And partly I re-watched a lot of episodes.
With your pause button.
Yeah, and just watching through them over and over. I listened a lot of the shows. I listened to them with the DVD commentaries switched on, because then the writers sometimes mention, by the way, this is why this number's there. Or if you look in the corner, you'll see Fermat's last theorem or something. Partly I spoke to other people. For example, there are 2 professors in America who've written lecture courses for undergraduates using a few examples from The Simpsons. So they were very helpful. I interviewed them. And then I went to America and I spent a week with the writers.
That must have been really amazing.
Oh, it was fantastic. They were so generous with their time, so willing to... the book is called The Simpsons and Their Mathematical Secrets.
Right.
But in truth, it was never a secret. The writers hid the maths, but they hid it purely so that it didn't get in the way of the plot.
Sort of hidden in plain sight?
Hidden in plain sight, exactly. Yeah. And so it was never supposed to be a secret. And they're very happy that now more people know about this mathematics, because in a way what they're doing is that they're reaching out to their fellow geeks.
Yeah.
If you're a teenage kid and you love maths and you see some maths in The Simpsons, you begin to think, well, hang on, the writers of The Simpsons love maths as much as I do, and maybe that makes people feel better about their own love of mathematics. So, no secret, but something that people have not really known about before.
And I like the fact that the book is Simpsons yellow in colour.
It is yellow, it is. I'd never noticed that before. You're right. But yeah, Fox obviously owned The Simpsons, and they were very, very supportive. They gave us some stills that we could use. I was wondering
how that worked with the fact that you're using their material, sort of.
Well, there's some
the name The Simpsons.
Well, yeah, I think if you're criticising is not quite the right word, but if you're commenting on a work of art, which I think The Simpsons is, then you're given quite a lot of flexibility if you're basically creating your own content and you're commenting on it.
Okay. And you're praising it in the end,
and it's a celebration of the show. Yeah. And it's written, I think, really with the collaboration of the writers. And as I say, Fox gave us 4 images to use from the show in the book, which is great because they're very, very careful about how their images are used. And the writers have just, even after the book was published, they've been giving interviews. I gave a lecture at the Museum of Mathematics in New York with Mike Reese, all about his involvement in the show and so on. So, it's been really good working with the writers it's a seller. And I'd say not just The Simpsons, but also Futurama. Right? When I got to the States, they were actually editing the next series, the final series of Futurama. So I got to see some of the shows before they were broadcast.
Oh, wow.
And there's 2D Blacktop is an episode that people may have seen. But in this episode, there's a drag racing scene on a Möbius strip, drag strip. Möbius strip is an odd mathematical, geometrical loop with a twist in it, which means that it's a shape that only has one side.
Yeah.
And because of that, in the end, Leela and Professor Farnsworth have a head-on collision, and they get squashed into 2 dimensions.
I've seen that episode. That's hilarious.
So the whole animation changes, and that is an homage to a novella written by Edwin A. Abbott called Flatland, which is all about creatures living in a 2-dimensional world. So you have a TV show now paying homage to a mathematical novella, and then eventually when they figure out how to get back to 3 dimensions, to go from 2 dimensions to 3 dimensions, you don't just snap between 2 and 3. You could pass between the fractional dimensions. Now you might think, well, hang on, how can something have a fractional dimension? Well, fractals turn out to have a fractional dimension. And so as the characters move from 2 dimensions to 3 dimensions, they pass through fractal landscapes. So again, all of this is kind of just background.
Yeah.
But if you know about these things, it just makes the show even richer.
Hello, something fell over there. I don't know what that was. But if you don't know about that stuff, it's still a funny show.
Yeah, exactly.
You still enjoy the adventure.
That's the skill of these writers.
Yeah.
That it's working on so many different levels. I remember when I came back from when The Simpsons started, I was working in CERN at the time, and I missed, I think, the first 2 seasons. And I came back, and my 9-year-old nephew was watching this odd show with yellow characters and so on. I didn't really get it, and I assumed it was a show for 9-year-olds. And it's got lots of slapstick, lots of fun and games, and then you begin to watch it as an adult, And pretty soon you realise that this is a show that works for everybody.
Yes, oh, absolutely. Well, there's been many shows like that over the years, of course.
Yeah.
There's been.
Yeah.
Now, how can people get their hands on their own copy?
Okay, I guess it's available in all good bookshops.
I think that guy on the motorbike's running.
He's just dashing off to get a copy right now. But yeah, no, I guess it's available. I mean, I've
online.
I guess so. Yeah, I've just arrived here, and so I'm going to be doing some more interviews with various radio stations and a bit of TV. So yeah, but I guess
people can just Google it.
Yeah, people can Google it. I mean, the response has been fantastic. In Germany, it's a runaway bestseller.
Get away.
I gave a talk in Berlin, and I was thrilled to bits because in the audience was the German actress who plays Lisa.
No.
Who does the voiceover for Lisa. And I was chatting to her afterwards, and she had no idea of all the mathematics in the show.
Really?
So that's been great to see it taking off in Germany. The response in Britain's been great. In America, I was touring. And so it's just, you spend years working on a book, and what you want is for people to go out there and enjoy it. So far it's been great fun.
I think the reaction from the crowd the other night in the pub was interesting. I was up the front, and I was moving around a bit, but what I really loved was you would show something and there would be gasps. People would literally go, like, they've seen the most amazing thing, because they probably know the episode and they never realised it.
The thing, I think people sometimes think, well, if this is a book about the Simpsons, the maths in it must be fairly trivial. Yeah. And the maths
is nothing but nothing
exactly
trivial. Nothing trivial.
There are discussions of infinity, but not only discussions of infinity. In Futurama, the cinema is called the Aleph Null. And Aleph Null is the smallest type of infinity. So the implication, and it's a very important mathematical implication, is that there are different scales of infinity.
Yeah.
So we talk about everything from calculus and infinitesimals all the way up to infinity and everything in between. And then I think the lovely thing is, although some of the ideas are quite complicated, you've got Marge and Homer kind of holding your hand and taking you through the book, hopefully kind of making it more accessible.
Fantastic. Well, I can certainly recommend that book, and if you have a chance to see Dr. Simon Singh present, don't miss that chance. Now, let's talk briefly about the latest developments in the UK when it comes to the libel situation and also the chiropractic, all mixed up.
Yeah, so I was sued for libel by chiropractors in Britain, and I eventually won my case, but two things came out of that. Two good things came out of it. One is that there was more awareness of the rotten claims made by some chiropractors in terms of the lack of evidence to support these claims. And so I think people in general are more aware that chiropractors can't treat asthma, really.
Yeah.
Also... There were skeptics, 2 or 3 in particular, who began to submit complaints to the regulatory body of chiropractors. So I think the regulators of chiropractic have come down on some of these claims. And so in Britain, I think chiropractic is better understood in terms of its limitations and is better policed by its regulators. The other good thing that came out of it was that lots of people said that they were being sued for libel. And people began to realise how one-sided our libel laws in England were. In fact, maybe not the last time I was here, but the time before that, I gave an interview to the Melbourne Age.
Yeah.
And my interview could not be published because the journalist was scared that he might end up getting sued back in London.
That's bizarre.
Yeah, it's this thing called libel tourism.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, the libel laws in England being so one-sided that people from all over the world were suing in London.
Yeah.
So a campaign started to reform English libel law. It took years and years, which is actually 3 years, but that's pretty quick in terms of transforming a whole area of law from scratch. But the 2013 Defamation Act, which was passed last year, came into force earlier this month. And so we now have a new defamation law. We need a defamation law. We don't want to get rid of libel. We've all got reputations and we wouldn't want them unfairly besmirched.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we want to encourage free speech. And it's about getting that balance right. And the new libel law is a big step towards having a fairer balance. So there are many, many changes. So, for example, it's now harder to bring libel tourism cases to London. From a scientific point of view, if you publish research in an academic journal and it's been peer-reviewed, it's going to be really hard to get sued for libel. So in a way, that's the place where open discussion needs to be as sacred as possible. And the new libel law reflects that. And there are many other changes in the libel law which are generally very positive.
And more to come, do you think?
Well, there are two things that I think we'll have to keep an eye on. One is that how are the judges going to interpret this law? And I think there are signs already that judges were interpreting the old law in a more generous fashion. So I think they'll understand what the new law is supposed to do and will interpret it in the appropriate manner. The problem that still has to be fixed is that Northern Ireland hasn't adopted this new libel law.
Really?
And in a way that's fine because they have their own political process and they need to make sure that they're happy with it. My problem, and many other people share this concern, is that they don't seem to show great enthusiasm for changing or keen to do it with any speed at all. And if Northern Ireland doesn't change its libel law, then Belfast will become the new libel capital. And academic journals will end up being sued in Belfast.
Yeah.
So, I hope it doesn't take an outrageous and embarrassing case to encourage Belfast to change. And I hope that they change sooner rather than later.
Well, it's been certainly taken up a lot of your time over the last few years.
And just, I said it the other night when I was here in Sydney, and it's absolutely true that the support we received in the UK from skeptics around the world and skeptics here in Australia and Cosmos magazine, I remember, ran a great article supporting the campaign. That was really much appreciated. And from a personal point of view, when my back was against the ropes and it looked like I was going to lose my case, knowing that there were people around the world tweeting, blogging, podcasting was a great morale booster for me.
I think I even gave you a quick call the day after the Queen announced in Parliament that these laws were on the way. Do you remember that?
When
the Queen opened Parliament.
Yes. No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. There were key moments in the case that will stay in my mind, and there was that occasion. I remember when I got sued, James Randi and Phil Plate emailed me and said, look, we've got your back. And I can remember suddenly an email from the Norwegian Skeptics saying, look, we're following you and we're behind you. And when I won my case, I think the Toronto Skeptics had a big party with a big cake. And it really means a lot that you're part of this community of people. And, okay, we disagree amongst ourselves sometimes, but we all care about the fact that rationality is important and there is a skeptical method, and that standing up for skepticism and free speech is important.
It is. And it's just reminded me, there's a copy of the Skeptic magazine I've given you, which is covered with ants at the moment. That's terrible, because we're out here on the street. And you probably, being the sort of chap you are, you probably know this, but the Australian Skeptics at our convention last year awarded our annual Bent Spoon Prize to the chiropractors. And there's someone you might know.
Yeah.
I'm just flipping through the magazine at the moment. Oh, it may well be in there. But yeah, we awarded it to the chiropractors of Australia for not enforcing their own regulations and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, the chiropractic community around the world seems to be in a spin. Because there are some chiropractors who know their limits. In fact, chiropractors would come to me and say, look, we support you. We might disagree with what you have to say, and actually, to some extent, we agree with what you say in some cases. And we can see that there's something rotten within our community. But some of them are scared to stand up and speak out. And these regulatory bodies are in a bind because they know what they should do.
Yeah.
But they know that a lot of their members aren't going to listen to them.
No, because a lot of their members are true believers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in many cases it is about an honestly held belief.
Yes.
These people have studied chiropractic, they've devoted themselves to chiropractic.
They get the feedback from their patients which convinces... you may have caught my talk somewhere around the world. I talk about this feedback effect.
Yeah.
Where, specifically with psychics, but also with alternative medicine healers, where their clients believe they have benefit. The clients give this feedback back to the practitioner. The practitioner is getting this constant good feedback. Of course they believe it.
Yeah. No, the classic example, I suppose, is colic. That, parents at their wits' end with babies that are just crying relentlessly, They put up with it for a few weeks. They've gone to see their GP. They put up with it a few more weeks. They eventually go to see a chiropractor, and within a few weeks, it's come to an end because eventually colic does come to an end. But the chiropractor gets the credit. Yeah. The chiropractor doesn't rightly feel, but they understandably feel that they've done something good. The parents become a walking advert. But when you do the clinical trial, you take 100 babies, you give them to a chiropractor, you take another 100 babies, just give them to a nurse, and the nurse just holds the baby. Return the babies to their parents. The parents have no idea whether their child has seen a chiropractor or a nurse. The results are exactly the same. Babies eventually get better from colic, is what we learn from that.
That's right. Well, Simon, thank you so much for giving me some of your time. I know you're sort of still getting over the trip and jet lag and all the fun of being in Sydney, and there's a fire truck just up the street. I don't know what it's doing. Luckily, the sirens aren't on. It's a nice day, I think. I hope you enjoy the rest of your time in Sydney.
I always love coming to Australia, and so really looking forward to having a bit of a holiday and a bit of work and a bit of family. It's going to be a really lovely trip, and looking forward to it.
Simon Singh, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Cheers.
Now on Belfast FM, we turn to the personal ads. Easygoing and confident skeptic seeks other critical thinkers for fun, laughter and good times. Must be willing to apply logic liberally and a good listener. Expect something new and interesting every month. Come and meet me in Belfast in Northern Ireland. If this sounds like you, check out my profile on belfastskeptics.com. Music by Kevin MacLeod.
Welcome to A Week in Science from RiAus, bringing you the science news you need to know. This week we're looking forward to 2014 and making our predictions of what will be big in science. We're expecting that 2014 will be a big year in space exploration. Last year, China and India launched probes to the Moon and Mars, while NASA rovers continued their work on the Red Planet. With these programs generating results in 2014 and a new wave of private enterprise, we may soon have a very different view of our place in the universe. 2013 saw several steps towards the creation of a universal flu vaccine. With research continuing into influenza, don't be surprised to see some big announcements regarding our battle against this virus. This could include the creation of a universal vaccine, a single shot which protects against all types of flu. In April 2013, Barack Obama announced the launch of a project to map the human brain. While it may be too early to see any results of this project in 2014, keep an eye out for this in the future, as scientists investigate how the billions of brain cells interact. This project may one day shed light into Alzheimer's and epilepsy. We also predict that in 2014 there will be a breakthrough in quantum computing. The problem is, we probably won't be able to explain it. And finally, you've heard of 3D printing. Well, get ready for the next big thing, 4D printing. 4D printing involves printing shapes or structures like 3D printing. However, these structures can then be activated to self-assemble into other shapes. This really is super cool. That's our predictions for 2014. So keep watching A Week in Science through the year to find out which ones we got right. You can also follow us on Twitter using the hashtag WeekInSci and like us on Facebook. I'm Paul Willis, and I'll see you back here next week.
Marit. Og jeg Kristin, og vi vil tipse deg som norsk lytter av The Skeptic Zone om skeptikermiljøet i Norge.
Det finnes norske blogger og pubtreff og podcast, og foreningen Skepsis driver med ulike former for aktivisme.
Sentralt skepsis.no, og her publiseres det dyptpløyende artikler, en kalender over skeptiske aktiviteter og lenker til andre skeptiske ressurser.
Skepsis-bloggen oppdateres jevnlig, og det diskuteres heftig på Skepsis-forumet, så stikk innom og delta du også.
Skepsis.no.
Hello, I'm Marit.
And I'm Kristin, and we want to let you know that there are lots of Norwegian skeptics for you to get to know.
There are blogs and pub meets and a podcast, and the Norwegian Skeptics also do paranormal tests and consumer activism.
To find out more, Google Norwegian Skeptics or visit skepsis.no.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Well, welcome to Maynard's spooky action at a distance, and we've only gone as far as the Crown Hotel tonight, where the first meeting of Skeptics in the Pub for 2014 is roaring away. We have Jessica. Hi, Jessica. How are you?
Hey, I'm very well. How are you?
I'm just fine and fit and fantastic because I haven't been back to work yet.
Me neither. I know, it's a wonderful feeling, isn't it?
It is a great feeling. And because we're all feeling so good, we're feeling in connection with the psychic id that we're all a part of. We can just dip into and have a prediction for 2014. Now, remember, these will be played back like last year. You predicted lava, a lot of lava. Now, I'm sure there was lava around the world, but I don't know what you were thinking of. What were you thinking of last year?
Good question. I'm tuning in now, tuning into the vibe. Tuning. Yeah, I can't remember. It's too long ago.
Okay,
and too much alcohol has...
Let's wipe that one. Let's go with 2014. What are your predictions, Jessica?
2014. Okay. The alcohol will flow at Skeptics in the Pub. A good time will be had by all. There will be lots and lots of interesting speakers and fun and good discussions and excellent talks and generally good times had by all.
Did you feel that anyone at the ABC is getting sacked this year?
Oh, that's what you asked me last year. I will say no.
Okay.
No one at the ABC will be sacked, but they will have a good time dragging their employer through the mud by their heels, backwards.
Wow, goodness me. That might be the head of the 7:30 report that does that. It could be anybody in the ABC. Wow. I love how you're specific to such a large amount of people. That's amazing.
Well, it's a knack, isn't it? Psychic predictions, and that's the secret. Just keep it general.
Now, what star sign you reckon is going to have a big year this year?
Look, me, Scorpio. Has to be a Scorpio year, definitely.
They're known as wild rooters, the Scorpio. They're also the most murdered star sign.
Oh, well, I will... I won't say anything on the grounds that I may incriminate myself.
Okay, now we'll look at... What are you looking into your crystal ball of glass there, and what do you see?
Well, I'm absolutely positive that there'll be a very big natural disaster in an underdeveloped country during 2014. I'm positive. I can see it. I can feel it. It's definitely going to happen.
You're going to be a bit more specific? You want to go with the Pacific Ring of Fire just to make it a bit more interesting?
Well, the Ring of Fire is always a good candidate because then you've got your earthquakes, you've got your tsunamis coming from that, and it's also very volatile in terms of cyclones and typhoons and those kinds of things. So definitely something that will be exacerbated by climate change.
Do you want to call a scientific prediction at all for 2014?
In 2014, we're on the crux of some very significant scientific breakthroughs. I don't want to give it away. I want everyone to be surprised. But something big is going to be happening, life-changing, life-saving in 2014.
Do you think they'll finally cure embarrassment?
Definitely not.
And here we are. We're at the end of a very busy talking table here. What's your name, sir?
Chris.
Okay, Chris, what do you got for predictions for 2014 for us?
Well, my main prediction is halfway through the year, Alan Jones will announce on 2GB that he's now a climate change believer.
No, why would you predict that? You just got a feeling in your bones? Is there something about a logical probability? Why this one?
Cognitive dissonance, because I think the government moving ahead with global warming, carbon tax and laws and so on to restrict carbon, Mr. Jones can't stay a climate denier.
So what do you think would be the tipping point? What would be the point where you'd have to go, I've got to go with it now? What do you think the thing that will happen that will have to be that thing?
Oh, he'll read up on some science and look at the facts and accept that.
Okay. Well, we'll see if that happens in 2014.
A bold decision.
Bold. Thank you. Yeah, look, I'm down I'm down at the disreputable end of the meeting now, and we've got now you got some important predictions for us here.
Yeah, the worst one of all. Sydney property prices crash.
So you think the bubble will finally burst and my rent in Glebe will be a bit reasonable for a change?
No, rent will still kick off.
Oh, bugger that. Oh.
Yeah, I know. But you can walk into a place for about half of what it'll be.
Right. Now, do you think that'll be across the whole area, or we'll still get the areas like your North Shore and that'll still maintain a bubble?
Stuff them.
Stuff them?
Yeah. Who cares about them?
So you want to pick a month the bubble will burst on Sydney property? That's a bold one. Yeah, come on.
Oh, look to America when that crashes, when they can't print any more money.
Okay. Well, okay. Well, that's bold. Anyone else want a prediction here at all?
I'm not so certain that there would be a crash. I mean, I think that there's a lot of buyers, maybe eastern suburbs-ish, and say some of the new Asian areas. They're not people. It's not a bubble because they're not buying them in the hopes of selling them off later. So if you're buying the house, not selling off, you're going to raise a family there. That's not a bubble because you're not planning to sell it, and then finding out that you can't get as much as what you bought for it.
True. Although you are paying too much.
Yes. Yeah. But that's not really what a bubble's about.
Okay. Right. So you probably the people will still be ripped off that are being ripped off now. Just the investors will leave and won't be able to sell again for a while.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Okay. That's good. Why didn't you say something as eloquent as him?
3 beers and more.
Yeah, fair enough. That's okay. Well, look, as I must stress it out, they are fairly rough predictions here. So you want to take a go at any predictions for 2014?
Okay. I think by the end of 2014, everybody will have forgotten about Edward Snowden.
Yeah.
Yes.
But he's going to drip feed the stuff out bit by bit. I mean, and of course
he will, and he'll have stuff going on by December still, but people will have forgotten about him anyway. And that's the way it goes.
They go, shut up, Snowden. He'll have a press conference and people go, shut up.
Yes, basically.
Okay. Now, what do you reckon? You reckon he might be a plant by another security organisation, like he might be with like the CIA or something, and he's there to discredit the NSA? What do you think of that theory?
It's too complicated. I think it's just what he appears on the surface. Okay. Like Occam's razor and all.
Okay, now what's your predictions for 2014, sir?
2014,
and we have to. What's your name too? So when we play it back, we can name and shame you.
Richard.
Okay. It's the great Richard. What do you got coming at us, Richard?
I don't think I'm so great, but anyway, I predict the media is going to mistake the Navy's new LHD for an aircraft carrier.
Oh, they're going to call it that. Why? Because it's the closest thing we've got to it?
I believe so, yes. It looks like one, but it's a little bit more than that.
So they'll come up with some cute word like our mini aircraft carrier or our something like that?
No? Probably.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay. Media gets something wrong with the Navy yet again. That's a good prediction. What's your name, sir, and what's your prediction?
Malcolm. Mel?
Hello, Malcolm. Okay, the amazing Malcolm, you've looked into your crystal ball. What are you seeing?
You might find that climate change is a great fallacy and proved wrong, and they'll stop teaching it in schools and give other options of considerations of how mankind's affecting the earth and so forth. But an absolute prediction, not too sure.
Okay.
Yeah. But the world should still be here by the end of next year anyhow.
I like that one. That's a good one. Look, I'm going to step in boldly. I'm going to predict the return of polar neck skivvies in black. The Steve Jobs look is going to be big this year, and I think girls will start wearing Hawaiian shirts more. That's my prediction. And what is your name, so we can name and shame you when we play this back?
Okay, it's Margaret Ann Tate, and I predict gay marriage legalised.
And then you want to put a state or a month, or what do you want? Put a qualifier on it. Come on, make it fun for us.
So I don't get the whole year? That's not fair.
Oh, no. Well, no, sometime this year, but you know.
Anytime this year. Oh, okay, let's say November.
Okay.
Why not?
Okay, that's not bad. Anything else?
Pot decriminalised.
Oh,
that's a big cool. Well, we gotta hope.
You're going federally here or state?
Well, it'll have to be a state thing, I think. Yeah, because, And what else?
What you're going to call Tasmania, are you, Tim?
I think it's Tasmania because they need the business.
Okay.
And I think, is there a census this year? There's not, is there? There's not another census for a while, so we're not going to find out. But I would say like atheism will increase from the 20% it is now to 30%. 80, that'd be great, like Sweden. I'd love that.
That's a bold one, Tim. Okay, Tim, now you pulled a few fast ones with your predictions last year with your palaver. You run the amazing Tim is written on the side of your tent at the Newtown Festival whenever you're there. What are you going to predict for 2014?
Well, I mean, I'd like to keep them general, right? Not too specific, right? Because they always come true. But I will predict that someone will make a prediction this year about the end of the world. That's my prediction, that there will be a prediction, right? I'll have to say I stole that one, but I have to be honest, right? But I like it anyway, right? I will predict that someone will predict that marijuana will be legalised. And that some poor sod is going to believe that gay marriage is going to be legalised too, right? But never mind. We can all hope in vain, can't we? We all hope in that. My prediction that really will happen is that I'm going to go out on the limb that the AVN, under whatever the anti-vaccination network, under whatever name it becomes, will be defunct by the end of the year.
And when you define defunct, like they'll be disbanded, or the membership will get their money back, or how does that work? What is defunct? Does that mean they're going to go into music or something?
Okay, now I'm going to be cynical. The membership will not get their money back, but I think the organisation will dissolve. It might become something else, right? I mean, they have a tendency to resurface, but I think that organisation will suddenly find there's lack of carpet under its feet.
Okay. Now, what star sign will have a big year this year?
Ophiuchus.
Hang on, is that 14th one, is it?
That's the 13th one, actually. Is there a 14th one?
Well, I don't know.
Another one.
I don't know how many there are anyway.
No, well, there's one of them there. I would say my prediction is that every star sign, the characteristic of the believer is that you are gullible, except for Aquarius, in which you are gorgeous and gullible.
Yeah. I can't figure out what your star sign is then.
No, I'm not going to say, actually, with the statement.
Right, now we've had a guy, he's been over in the corner working away on his iPad. He had a bit of a look at what might actually happen this year. What is your name, sir? What do you predict?
My name is Joshua Godby, and I have 3 stellar predictions for the next 12 months. So, following Ice Storm Hercules, which is currently hitting northern America at the moment, I predict that this year's summer in North America will be one of the hottest on record, and the entire place will go up in flames.
Oh, and that is it. What? So the atmosphere will actually combust. That's a tall call.
It will reach critical mass, and all of North America gone.
Well, let's put a number on it. How many? And let's go degrees Fahrenheit, because that's the way they work over there. How many degrees Fahrenheit higher than average will it be across the US this year, 2014, sir?
Oh, that's a tough one. So
psychics don't normally get asked a number like that, do they?
That's right.
But because you're the guy with the iPad with the good photos on it, I thought, have a look.
Definitely, I'd say 20 degrees above average.
20 above.
Cool.
That's a tall call, but a bold one.
It is indeed a bold one.
Okay, well, we'll get back to you next year.
Well, I've got this is probably my best prediction for next year. So, Kim Jong-un of North Korea will be assassinated by Dennis Rodman.
Whoa!
Who will then become the most popular leader in North Korean history. So that's the concrete prediction for the next 12 months.
What another talk? Do you feel that anybody with a name beginning with M will lose their job at the ABC this year at all?
I'm not sure I can comment on that one, nor should I.
There's an element of justice there that you can't factor in, isn't there?
There is indeed.
And anything else you got there?
I do, but this one's a bit of a silly one.
Okay, well, I'll ask you first. What star sign will have a huge year this year in 2014?
Well, it's definitely Taurus, because I'm planning on rocking it this year.
Okay. Now, because that was the completely reasonable prediction. What's the ridiculous one you've got written down there?
The ridiculous prediction is that scientists will discover a method of developing gills in Homo sapiens, and Waterworld will become a reality.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. Wow.
Don't even need to breathe.
Breathing underwater. You don't need to breathe anymore. Hang on a minute now. Look, the discussion has broken out here over what a lot of people universally think is the most crap superhero of all time, and that is the Man from Atlantis, played by Patrick Duffy, of course, from Dallas. And we're trying to speculate. We can't remember. He did swim in a very unusual way. He had the pair of Speedos to wear around the place, but did he breathe through gills or not?
I don't think so. I reckon he just had really big lungs.
So he's called his breath.
He's definitely the worst superhero in history.
Yeah, it has been pointed out many times. It's worth mentioning. What do you reckon, people? The Man from Atlantis, the most crap superhero ever? Yeah, see, everyone's
didn't even know who he was.
Yeah, exactly. He's the unknown superhero. Well, there you have it. Just a whole bunch of white wine talking, or some skeptics who really have their finger up the future. Only the future can tell. It's Spooky Maynard signing off.
Hey, this is Jay Novella from the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe podcast. Did you know that there are thousands of skeptical reports, interviews, and investigations going back to 1981, free to download? Just visit www.skeptics.com.au. Click the publications link and enjoy almost every back issue of The Skeptic, the journal from Australian skeptics. You can also subscribe online and get the latest digital or hard copy of this, the world's second oldest skeptical magazine. That's www.skeptics.com.au, or just Google Australian Skeptics.
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone on this hot and steamy Sydney day. Coming up in the next few weeks, even more from Mad Maynard and some great interviews from the Australian Skeptics National Convention. Yes, folks, they're never ending, which is a good thing. Also, I'm going to catch up to a dear friend of mine, Susan Gerbeck, from the Guerrilla Skepticism program, or outreach or initiative. That should be very interesting. But for this week, this is Richard Saunders and Fred the Cat. Say hello, Fred. That's about as much as we're going to get out of him. Signing off from Sydney, Australia.
You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for comments, contacts, and extra video reports.